The campaign for U.S. Senate candidate Graham Platner remains paused following those sexual assault allegations that emerged on Monday.
Democrats here in Maine now weighing in as a deadline for Platner to drop out approaches. Our Phil Hirschkorn joining us live in the studio tonight with more insight. Hi, Phil.
Brian and Amanda, this feels like the end of a trial. A jury of one is deliberating and are waiting for his verdict, stay or go. At this hour, the Maine Democratic Party has been meeting for 90 minutes, an emergency virtual meeting with its 113-member committee discussing what to do about Graham Platner and how to possibly replace him as their U.S. Senate candidate. The problem is, as far as we know, Platner hasn't communicated yet his decision that is his and his alone to make as the primary winning official nominee. We don't know what Platner plans to say or when about leaving the race, which is what the Democratic Party and his most prominent endorsers in Maine and nationally have asked him to do. The 41-year-old oyster farmer, military veteran, and first-time candidate won 72% of the primary vote exactly 1 month ago, and he wants to leverage that fleeting popularity, 150,000 votes, 15,000 volunteers, with a say over the process of choosing his replacement. The party says no, just take your ball and go home.
Unfortunately, Graham Platner's team has repeatedly reached out to us in an attempt to put their thumb on the scale of what this process looks like. We have repeatedly reiterated to Graham Platner's team that they have no role in determining our next Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate, nor in determining what this process looks like.
The jockeying to replace Platner well underway among the hopefuls. 3 former candidates for governor: Nirav Shah, Troy Jackson, Shenna Bellows, who placed 2nd, 3rd, and 4th respectively in the primary, as well as Jordan Wood, who placed 3rd in the 2nd congressional district primary. Jackson, who was the closest to Platner, cross-endorsing each other, rallying together with Bernie Sanders, has deleted all of his positive Twitter or X posts about Platner. Now, today, Maine's largest labor organization, the AFL-CIO, urged Platner to exit the race. Platner did have a lot of union endorsements, but like the rest, those are all collapsing. And the clock is ticking. Under state law, the deadline to withdraw from the November general election is 5 days from now, this coming Monday, July 13th. The party's deadline to choose a replacement would be 2 weeks later, July 27th. Whoever is next, though, won't have a lot of time to build a campaign. There's only 118 days until Election Day. In the studio, Phil Hirschkorn for CENTER Maine.
Phil, thank you. More than 150,000 voters cast their Democratic primary ballot for Graham Platner just 1 month ago. Now some tell us they're regretting that choice.
To get a sense of what voters are thinking, CENTER Maine's Christian Harsa brings us to the streets of Portland.
Since the latest news about Graham Platner was released, there was conversations across Maine about what he should do. And here in Portland, where he won easily, those conversations are pointing towards that he should drop out.
Graham should get out of the way.
Alex Kasser is not being shot.
He misrepresented who he was from the beginning.
According to the Maine Democratic Party, Platner is trying to pick a successor.
But he doesn't have the authority, and he has no credibility, and he needs to step aside and just bow out quietly.
I hope it happens very quickly because there's not much time.
Joyce Mendoza says she used to support many of Platner's ideas.
I think we have no other choice but look for other talent.
It's better that it's coming out to light now than having to deal with it if and when he was going to be elected to office.
Kasser, Mendoza, and Faith Bigd don't have a choice runner-up in mind.
I'm at a loss right now, to be honest.
But a transparent and fair process is a priority.
Based on votes coming in from the Democratic Party.
I want to think the best of him.
But there have been too many allegations for Karen Mallory.
I'm still kind of undecided, but I'm also disappointed.
Platner's downfall erodes confidence that Senator Susan Collins can be beat.
No, I'm not so sure who's going to be doing that, but it feels like it's not going to be him.
Now, the voices you haven't heard are those who I spoke to off camera. For whatever reason, they didn't want their voice on this screen. But from those conversations, most of them told me that what they think Platner has allegedly done is unforgivable. What they want him to do is to drop out. And who's next? Well, many of them, they just aren't sure. In Portland, Christian Harsa, CENTER Maine.
A former employee for the Maine Department of Health and Human Services is suing the agency now in a federal lawsuit. Sergey Miller claims several supervisors retaliated against him when he refused to falsify the findings of a child welfare investigation earlier this year. According to the lawsuit, Miller refused to change a claim of child abuse to reflect no findings. He says he was ultimately let go after filing a complaint. Maine DHHS tells us it will not comment on pending litigation.
Owners of Rira Irish Pub in Portland are also facing a lawsuit filed on Monday. It alleges former bartender Ashanti Williams dealt with discrimination and sexual harassment. The lawsuit says Williams was, at the time, the only black front-facing employee and that he was treated differently than his white coworkers. Williams claims a manager once told him he needed to buy her coffee if he showed up late to work. He also says his coworkers often took home gifts of liquor, but he was reprimanded for trying to do the same. We have reached out to Rira's for comment. We have not heard back. A couple of recent deaths are now prompting Maine railroad officials to update the public on safety regulations.
Both of those deaths involved trains, and they happened within 2 weeks from each other. News CENTER Maine's Alex Haskell joining us from our newsroom with more. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Brent. Hi, Amanda. So I spoke with Patricia Quinn, the executive director of the Northern New England Passenger Rail Authority, about what people should know around railroad tracks. Quinn says the most important thing to remember is that railroad tracks are private property. Anyone walking on the tracks is trespassing. She says that was the case in both the Brunswick and Old Orchard Beach deaths. Quinn says these tragedies also take a toll on train crews, who are often the first to check on a victim and see if there's anything they can do to help. For drivers, she says it's critical to obey warning lights, gates, and other signals at railroad crossings. And while railroad officials work to educate the public, she says there's only so much they can do to keep people off the tracks.
A lot of the railroad is in the woods. You can't be everywhere. And so it's really important that people need to take some of their own responsibility.
Quinn also says one misconception is that trains are always easy to hear. So in reality, she says they're much quieter than people may expect. And between Portland and Brunswick, trains aren't required to sound their horns at every crossing. So if a train is moving at speed, it can appear with very little to no warning. In the newsroom, Alex Haskell, News CENTER Maine.
The town of Peru is joining a growing list of Maine communities now halting any data center development projects. This week, the select board there approved a one-year moratorium, giving members and the planning board a chance to study impacts. They will focus on how data centers affect local water use, the electrical grid, as well as noise levels and the environment. Town leaders note this pause does not affect any existing telecommunication facilities.
And the city of Eastport could be joining that list as well. Happening right now, the city council is scheduling a public hearing on a proposal to ban large-scale data centers. The city council has already rejected a proposal for a temporary moratorium. As we've reported, a planned underwater AI center has been sparking debate in that community.